It's basically a response video to Matt and Kim. General subject again of consciousness, language, and added poetry because that's sort of, I think, the sticking point here. There's a lot of agreement between people, but I guess I'm focusing more on the disagreements because I see them. There's certain language that just always, provokes a response from me. And a lot of it is just the way we use language. I mean, we've been over this, but language is just a definition. Its purpose is to define, and it's made of definitions. And so that is all it is. It is a representation of truth, of a description, of the story. Matt's basically, okay, you concede that some objective claims are legitimate, okay, if they're simple enough, and that more complex realities, language is inadequate. Basically, is what you're saying, I think. You say it's impossible, but I think what you're just saying is that we don't have the language. We're not articulate enough to refine and our language to do what description requires, or what an accurate description demands. So I mean, yes, I could say the word life, and poof, it's a word that has it's a long story, right? Very long, 4 billion years, whatever, and it's very intricate story. It has all kinds of physics and biology and all kinds of stuff to it. So it's a big, giant, huge concept that maybe all people can't communicate using just one generic word and say the word and we understand each other, because we're all going to focus on different parts of that specific, and I don't think in any one conscious moment we could actually contemplate life and have an image or a sense of it in any moment of consciousness. It really can't be grasped in anything but over a very protracted period of time. I mean, you could spend a year contemplating life and all the nuances before you would have contemplated in whole a relatively complete picture of life, our understanding, our representation. So yeah, there are things in reality that might take a person a year to describe, or to define, even using the best of our language. And I'm not discounting that fact. But it is, I guess I'm sort of reacting because it's all this, these words are a problem. I mean, I've done a video on this, but I'm really irritated by the seizure of words by certain, there's even the concept of materialism. Now all of a sudden materialism has to mean something. It has to implicate this broader definition. It's like objectivism is now, Ayn Rand's word and no one else can touch it. I mean, she's defined what objective means as a philosophy. I mean, I can't call myself, even though I would describe my philosophy as objectivism, because I believe in attempting to duplicate the objective perspective. It's nothing like her philosophy. I mean, the similarity couldn't be more complete. And yet we're stuck with these same words. And so a lot of, I guess, what trips me up is having to attempt to talk, and when I have to use words that other people are going to react to as if I'm advocating a philosophy, when I'm not. I'm taking the word more literally, or at least I'm using it in a way that seems commonsensical to me and isn't going to be the same for them. And so I guess I would, consciousness is just a manifestation of a material reality. It itself, I would argue, is not a material thing. It does not have a material existence. It is a manifestation. It is something that goes with the operation of this. It's like a machine. It'll make noise and create pollution and do this and do. It has certain things that happen when it is running. The spinning top maybe is a better example. When it is spinning, certain forces are activated. There are rules governing its existence that are very different when it's just sitting on the table doing nothing. It's almost a different reality when it's spinning. And for us, when our brains are working, yeah, we have this different reality. The spinning is taking place, and so there's these forces and this thing happening, and it ends up being consciousness. But I would also argue that it's not magic. It's, you know, an earthworm probably has this consciousness. All right, I think obviously consciousness is dependent on sophistication. I mean, you have to have the extended memory to be able to maximize the conscious experience, or at least it maximizes the experience. It adds nuance and intensity to the consciousness, and because maybe just the raw feeling of pain, it's like maybe just an electrical spark. It's just it's you know, without context, it has so much less impact as a conscious event, perhaps. Perspective adds a lot to it, I guess. This perspective we build up by having this more complex consciousness. But I guess the roots of consciousness are in what I would describe as that lizard brain, and that with each expansion on the brain, that consciousness is enhanced. So I guess I would sort of argue with Kim that, you know, she sort of implied that consciousness was a collective product of the brain, and I don't think it's really a collective product. It's probably a product of one part of the brain, and that these other parts enhance what is happening through that through that piece of pipe, or through that thing, that prism, that whatever it is that makes consciousness happen. So to get to the poetry part of it, like I said, I think poetry, I think what you're looking for, Matt, is you're looking for something better than viewing the human race or our lives as just an extension, a biological and evolutionary extension of a maggot. I mean, you don't want to look at human life, at your I, your ego, as something as mechanical, as a mouth and an ass, something that just consumes, something that just has parts compelled to do something by a natural selection process that compel it to behave and compel it to function, and that it doesn't have, that there's nothing more magnificent than that. And so I think you're looking for the excuse of this thing called poetry, or this thing called or this complexity. You want more to the story, and so it's almost an excuse, I think, to say, okay, because our language is limited and we cannot describe in a single sentence or a few words complex reality, we will deny the existence of it, or we'll deny the functionality of language. And that's, to me, unfair. I mean, what we have to accept is just these limitations. It takes us time to absorb information. It takes us time to expel it. We're not operating on broadband. Okay, it's got to go little bits at a time between us, and but that doesn't mean there's a more complex story. And I see there's power in poetry. There's power in taking a complex idea, reducing it to these interacting symbols that can explain a complex idea in a less, you know, in a simpler form. It's a hieroglyphics of sorts. It's a type of language, but it's using abstract connections rather than direct connections, perhaps is a way to put it. It's a shorthand. You know, it's still language. It's just a little different, and it's and for the greater power it gives you, it takes a little bit away in that it is not as accurate, but it is more accurate in conveying the largeness of an idea, because it expresses the emotion, and it invokes much more feeling and thought that maybe a precise definition wouldn't have. Out of time.